My name's Jeff Brown, and I've been involved with these kind of programs for well over 20 years. I can honestly say I joined the BTRM about a little over 2 years ago, and for me it is genuinely in a league of its own insofar as the sheer practicality and usefulness of the program is concerned. In other words, the knowledge and the skill set that you pick up will be directly applicable and usable on your desks, on the relevant desks. I've worked very intensely for the CQF, the CFA, the FRM, KIA, a lot of all these professional qualifications within the financial services sector primarily. And they're all great programs. They really are. They're amazing programs. But I do think that some of them, for example, the FRM, which is a brilliant program, you can't become a risk manager or a risk analyst just by doing the FRM. Okay, so there's quite a lot of theory involved. CFA, a lot of accounts, ethics, regulations, a little bit of quant finance. It's an amazing syllabus, usually takes 3 years to do, but it's not necessarily the most useful, depending on what role you do. Okay, if you're working in equity research or something like that, very useful. But a lot of other roles within, let's say, in an investment bank or a hedge fund, it's not entirely useful. The BTRM is completely useful. And to give you an idea, when I started a couple of years ago, I made it my mission to talk to every single person around the world who had completed the program. And my objective was to find out what improvements could be made on the program. What ended up happening is it was almost unanimous. The feedback on this program was exceptional. And that was thrilling to my ears, obviously, but it was incredible feedback. They said this was really useful. The faculty teach what they do on their desk, essentially. That's why it's so useful. And I think that Professor Moorad Choudhry, who founded the program, along with Neil Fowler, the MD at WBS Training, they made sure they wanted to design a program that was directly useful to one's role. So I'm hoping that during this information session, during this presentation, you get a really strong flavor of what this is all about, and that you leave the session with enough information to make a decision, right, as to whether it's for you or whether it isn't for you. I'll be presenting along with Michael Eichhorn, who is one of the faculty members. I'll give you a very brief introduction of his career to date. He basically started off as a risk manager, then moved into kind of senior risk audit areas at RBS, became the chief risk officer at RBS, moved over to Credit Suisse, where he spent 10 years working primarily as an MD and chief risk officer there. And then finally, last year, moved to LBBW, where he is group head of traded risk. I'll leave the introduction there because I'm sure Michael will have a little bit more to say about that. Okay, so let's get on with the presentation. First of all, it's great to see you all here. Welcome along. I can see that you've come from a lot of different regions in the world. There are some from the UAE, from the UK, South America, Africa, India as well. So this is great because one of the things we're going to be talking about is the global community that the BTRM strives to be. What are we going to be covering during this information session? Well, what actually is the BTRM? How is it useful? Why is it beneficial? We'll talk a little bit about the history and the evolution of the program, The BTRM faculty is something that Michael is in a better position to talk to you about. We'll talk about the candidate profiles, which is very important, obviously, professional and academic backgrounds that you need to have in order to be able to follow the program efficiently. We'll talk about the BTRM journey, which does start today. For some of you, it would have started before today if you had visited our website or read the brochure, done any research on the program. We'll talk about, Michael in particular will break down the syllabus in some detail. Who certifies the program? Who accredits the program? We'll talk about the testimonials. We won't go into all of the testimonials, just 1 or 2, 3 testimonials in order to give you a flavour of what people think of the program. We'll then talk about the BTRM alumni contacts, should you wish to talk to anybody who's done the program. We'll talk about the study partner program as well, the help desk, otherwise known as the BTRM forum, and we'll finally do a Q&A session. But as I say, if any questions pop up during this presentation, feel free to ask. So what is the BTRM about? Asset liability management, ALM, is a core discipline in banking and one that must be mastered by every bank, irrespective of each bank's operating model or product set. It's a discipline as old as banking itself. I don't often read out what's in the slide, but this sums it up, okay? This is what the BTRM is about. It's a 6-month program. It's quite intense. It's a couple of lectures a week, and it's designed to empower individuals working in every aspect of bank balance sheet risk management and ALM. Again, that is the core of what this is about. It is extremely practical, very applied, practitioner-led, developed, and orientated. And you'll find that out a little bit when we talk about the faculty. It's also very unique as the only global professional qualification exclusively for bank, treasury, finance, and risk professionals. And incidentally, it's not just the 6-month BTRM program that you're signing up for. It's also we have alumni lifelong learning lectures. We have webinars taking place every single month. We've got one webinar taking place on the 22nd of May, which is going to be extremely popular. We had another webinar that took place a couple of weeks ago. We had one that took place a few weeks before that, an amazing one by Jill Satina and Michael Kadachi on how tariffs were impacting the banking sector. That was pretty amazing. And you can view these. If you want to view any of these recordings, then feel free to send me an email. And I will do my best to get the recording to you. Here's my email address. Feel free to ask me any questions in the coming hours, days, weeks, and so on as well. So the BTRM started, it was devised by Professor Moorad Choudhry, who I'm sure you all know. He's written the classic textbooks on the principles of banking, a brilliant book. If you haven't read it, read it because it is excellent. You'll also be provided with it, by the way. So if you want a free copy, then wait until you've enrolled. But he basically devised the program. He's a banking practitioner with over 33 years of experience now in the financial markets. And the program itself started, the first cohort was in May 2014. May 2014. So last year was our 10th anniversary. And during that time, we've added to it, and we're always amending the syllabus. Every 6 months, we have a full-on review in order to amend the syllabus, especially in today's day and age where things are transitioning and changing a lot. So we are, this is the University of Applied Sciences and Arts, Northwestern Switzerland, is the awarding body, the BTRM partner, and we are absolutely delighted that they agreed to partner with us a few years ago. They're an incredibly innovative university. They've got hundreds of collaborations around the world. They put through delegates themselves through the BTRM program, and they're an extraordinary university to work with. Okay, I think on this one, I'll hand over to one of our faculty members, Michael, who can talk a little bit about the BTRM faculty.
No, thank you, Jeff, and thanks for spending the time. So I briefly repeat my background because I think it's indicative of the type of members you will meet in the faculty. As Jeff said, I currently work as a group head of traded risk for the third largest bank in Germany. And before that, I worked as a Treasury CRO for over 10 years, first for the Royal Bank of Scotland in London and then for Credit Suisse. I also worked as a country CEO and as a divisional head of market risk. Like some of my colleagues, I also teach. I lecture as an honorary professor at the German University and as a visiting lecturer at the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. What you see on this slide is our BTRM faculty, and I want you to take away a few points from this slide. The first point is all people you can see on the slide are practitioners. So this is a course taught by practitioners for practitioners. By practitioners for practitioners. The second point is that between us, we share several hundred years of treasury and risk experience, first-hand treasury and risk experience. And what I also noted is we cover all three lines of defense. So for example, Moorad and Chris Westcott, who you can see in the top left corner, they worked as treasurer and divisional treasurers for large banks. Beata, who you can see at the bottom, she's currently working as a treasurer for Alika Bank, UK startup bank. That's the first line. When you look at Treasury CROs, if you look for Treasury CROs, you've got not only myself, but you've got Claire Sutherland. You can see on third row on the right. As an example, she's the Treasury CRO at Newcastle Building Society. And if you say, but I work in internal audit, I would say, yeah, Patricia Garrity in the second row. She's your go-to person. If you look for consultants, you can see for yourself, you've got Natasha and Agashota, for example. If you look for experts in certain fields like FTP, Engelberg Plasberg, if you look for experts in CSRBB, Patrick Carey. So you've got for every topic a deep set of experts. That's a key point. I think wherever you are, there will be a person who has a background that will closely match your background in our BTRM faculty. We also cover all types of financial firms and business models, and we cover firms at different stages in their life cycle, from startups, as I mentioned, up to very mature global businesses. And as I said, many of us also lecture at universities or provide training to professionals, which I think is important because it has taught us how to convey the content in a way that helps you to progress your learning. For example, Moorad, Chris, Ed, and then Jessica are also working as professors, visiting professors. And then there's one other point I want to highlight. We apply the principle or the long-standing tradition from the French Legion. And what the French Legion does is that the most experienced and best legionnaires are often chosen to help train the next generation. And if you look at the bottom, you see Mirinda Love. She's actually an ex-BTRM student, an alumni, who stood out and then who's now a BTRM faculty member. We are now running cohort 21. There's one student, Amit Basal from Standard Chartered Singapore. He was a student in the last cohort and is now also joining the faculty. So for outstanding students, there's also the door open to join the faculty and to teach. As a final thought, I once asked Moorad what he considers the most distinguished achievement of his career, what he's most proud of. And what I expected was that he would talk about one of the treasury roles, that he would talk about the CEO roles that he covered, or one of the non-executive director roles that he's currently covering, or maybe one of the books, and then he has written he's probably the leading voice. I don't know anyone who has written more books on Treasury content than he has. And to my surprise, what he answered was his biggest achievement was building this faculty. And he explained it to me. He said, these are all people I've worked with. I've only hired people I've worked with. They're hand-selected, and they stood out for me. And I trust them. I trust their technical expertise. I trust their attitude to train and progress people.
Superb. Okay. Yeah. Well, that gives you an idea of what Michael is like as a trainer as well. He keeps it very simple, very clear, and he'll take you through the syllabus slides as well. But that's a great summary of the faculty and the quality of the faculty. I should also just add that it is an international faculty. So we have faculty from different jurisdictions around the world in order to give their take on what's happening in this space. We've got faculty in EMEA, across EMEA, Asia, North America, South America, Africa. It's phenomenal. I mean, more specific in Singapore. In the US, Jill Satina, it's worth checking her out. She's joined the faculty from the US and she's responsible for North America. We have a lot of delegates coming through from Brazil and Chile as well, getting slightly away from the faculty. But anyway, hopefully just to give you a flavor of not only the dynamism of the faculty, but also the global locations of the faculty. Okay, the candidates, this is really important actually, and sure, you've got the numbers there of, you know, candidates going through the program. The program that just started in April was genuinely our record-breaking program by a long distance. It was extraordinary in terms of how many people from around the world have enrolled. But I think that what I really want you to take a look at is the student profiles, because this will give you, the academic backgrounds are fair enough. I think that's a given. But the student profiles give you an idea of who enrolls onto this program. And it is literally, you know, from very junior members working in Treasury departments through to the most senior. So it could be, you know, we have MDs coming onto the program, finance directors, CROs, and often these very senior people do it for themselves. So they go through the program and they then find that this is actually really useful. And then they put the rest of their team members through the program. So this happened with a finance director at a big, huge Spanish bank who went through the program 3 or 4 years ago and then decided, right, this is incredibly useful. We're going to, we'll put the BTRM on our preferred list of courses and we'll get as many relevant people working, you know, on relevant desks to go through the program. More recently, an MD working in the US, but working for a Dutch bank, did exactly the same. So he studied the BTRM program about 18 months ago or so, absolutely loved it, put the BTRM on the preferred list of courses, and now people are going through from Rabobank left, right, and centre. So it is an incredible array of students who go through the program. And you can get in touch with these students. You can network with these students from all over the world whilst you're studying on the program. This is the location of BTRM students. They've come from over 60 countries worldwide. And these are some of the employers who put their delegates through the program. We don't have all of the employers on here because there are some employers who choose not to, or they don't permit us to to put them on this slide deck. But you can see there's we basically have all the big banks, a lot of small banks and medium-sized banks putting delegates through the program. So the BTRM journey starts today. It starts with this information session where we discuss course details. It's recorded, this session, so if any of you do want to review this session, then you're more than welcome. Just send me an email and I'll forward you the recording. By the end of the session, you should have a very clear vision of what this is like, a clear feel of what this program is like, and then take your time to make your decision. Once you've made your decision, if you decide you want to enroll, you apply online via a registration form, the registration form, or you can send me an email and I'll help you with the application process, which is very simple. We say within 3 working days. It's usually within hours that the admissions department decide whether or not you're suitable for the program, or a maximum of 24 hours. And then once you're approved, you then start with the primer on banking, which is to get everybody up to speed and on the same playing field. You receive a full set of course materials and textbooks. And then there are, in fact, just bear with me one second. I think I might leave this to Michael to talk about a little bit later in terms of the structure of the program and the different modules of the program, including the primer. I think I'll let Michael talk about that a little bit later. So we are fully accredited by the Association of Corporate Treasurers. We're extremely proud of this because this was a 9-month process. And it was a rigorous one. Very, very, very few organizations are accredited by the ACT. We are. It's developed into a partnership. We help them, they help us, and it's an extraordinary organization, actually, the ACT. So it's well worth visiting their website as well. And the reason why they accredited the program is purely and simply because they thought that those coming out of the program would be more knowledgeable and have a higher skill set than when they started the program. That was the main criteria for their decision. We're certified and accredited by the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment. We're fully accredited by the American Bankers Association. And these are some of the testimonials. Michael will talk a little bit about the testimonials later, but I just want to read you this one because I think it sums it up perfectly, which is the top left-hand corner. If I can read it, my eyesight is not great. I really liked the way that one would learn something at a lecture and then go back to the office and apply it the next day to the day job. It was that practical and relevant a course for practitioners. And that really sums it up. That's what this course does. Okay. Michael, I think I'll hand over to you for this one, and you can carry on with this and the syllabus.
Okay. Thank you. So what you see on this slide is how we deliver the program. And at the center of it is a learning platform, a portal, as you can see here. I just want to lead you through the boxes on the right-hand side to give you an understanding how it works. So this portal is, if you like, the central connection point between the lecturers and the students. And it works in a number of ways. First, there's a dedicated online form. What this is a form where you can ask questions at any time during your studies, even after your studies. We frequently, there's not a single week where we don't have a question from an alumni asking the faculty to opine on what are often quite technical and deep problems. And I'm joined the BTRM in cohort 7. So for the last 5 years, I haven't seen a single request that wasn't answered. And then quite often we even speak to each other before we go back to make sure we give the richest possible answer. So you can use the faculty also as a pool of consultant and get even advice after your studies. Then we've got the live lectures. So as Jeff said, there's a reason why we chose live lectures. We update the syllabus and we update the lectures for every single cohort to make sure we stay up to date, also to improve them on a continuous basis. If you cannot join, and in the live lectures, you can ask questions. In fact, with the current cohort, we are now at lecture 7. We had lectures that overrun because there were so many questions by the students, so it is interactive. If you cannot join the live lectures, all lectures are recorded and then uploaded immediately after the lecture. So you've got lots of students who study and at the weekend and then work through the lectures at the weekend. What you also get is all lecture slides that are presented will be uploaded together with the recording. So you can build your own treasure chest. I also know students take some of the slides into their day-to-day work and then use it for discussions with their colleagues. In terms of the learning techniques, as you will see when I go through the modules, we use different learning techniques. We use simulation games, we use case studies. We try to make it as practical and interactive as possible. And what we also provide are support materials. Right now, there's a spreadsheet circulating, which is about balance sheet optimization, as we are in the first module. In the next module, we talk about the ICO committee. I know that Moorad often get asked to share sample templates for the asset-liability committee. So there will be all kinds of additional materials provided. And then, as Jeff said at the outset, we have got ad hoc webinars. 1 month ago, I hosted a webinar where we invited Race Coyne, the CEO, hedgehog of an American consultancy, and she talked about what moves the yield curve. And then it was quite a successful session. That's what are these ad hoc webinars that Jeff also kindly mentioned. And then what is important for us is lifelong learning. So you will have access to this portal, and then you will see we've got a working paper series. We keep all the questions that have been asked by prior cohorts in the forum. So it's a rich treasure chest that you can go to. I was actually at one point thinking we should publish a book just taking all the questions that have been asked over the years. So I hope that gives you an idea about how the program will be delivered. And then what I want to do on the next slide is basically take you through the journey, the BTRM journey, how it works in practical terms. So here we go. So what you see on this slide is how the BTRM journey is organized from start to finish. And most of our students join the program to progress their career, either internally or externally. And then we also have people who have just been promoted and want to make sure that they succeed in their new role. And what this slide shows, and the following slide shows, is how we will arm you for this challenge. As you can see, it's a comprehensive program divided into 5 modules. I would describe the first, what we call stage 1, as the foundation modules, and then we've got deep dives into liquidity and into capital, which I'll explain in more detail in a minute. Then, in order to achieve and pass the certification, what you have to do is that after each module, you have to take an online multiple choice test. And you can take them immediately after the module is finished. We are now close to finishing off module 1 and then start module 2. But you can also do them later. The only condition we've got is that you need to do them at least 1 week prior to the written exam, that you can see in the bottom right corner. 1 week prior to the written exam. However, we recommend that once you have completed the module, you take the test and then it's done and dusted. If you pass the exam, you get 2 certificates. You get a certificate from BTRM, and you also get a certificate from this from the Swiss university that Jeff mentioned. And to our understanding, that's the only certificate that has this dual degree mechanism. Let me dive deeper into the individual modules. So the first foundation layer of foundation module is a bank's balance sheet. Moorad is often saying at conferences, the balance sheet is everything. The balance sheet is everything. I've also heard it from treasurers of major banks, that for them the balance sheet is everything. So what we try to do here is to lay the foundation when it comes to capital, when it comes to liquidity, but also when it comes to the overall balance sheet structure. So when it comes to structural interest rate risk, net interest income, NIM, and when it comes to structural FX risk. Now, what we do here, and that's quite important, therefore I don't use the word comprehensive randomly, but we look at it from all different perspectives. We look at it from if you like, from an accounting perspective, as you can see at the bottom, just to illustrate the sword. Let's say that's the accounting perspective. But simultaneously, we also look at it from an economic perspective. The blue tie should illustrate the economic perspective. And we look at it from an income perspective, what the CFO may be interested in. And we look at it from a regulatory perspective. So we look at these balance sheet items, and then also in the following modules, we look at it from different angles, and that gives us a comfort that we have a comprehensive look. And that's what's going on, as we know from our own experience. That's what makes treasury and risk management so challenging, that you need to have all these different perspectives in mind. What we also do, you can see it at the bottom, is we have integrated a simulation game here to make it really applicable for you. And then, for example, in the last lecture of this module, lecture 6, we will have 4 case studies, real-life case studies on the management of interest rate risk, which also emphasize all these different perspectives. So that's module 1. To make it enjoyable for you, I've also picked a joke on this module, and then this is just a light note. Why do you think the Basel III regulation had to go to therapy? And the answer is, there are deep-seated issues with commitment and leverage. There are deep-seated issues with commitment and leverage. So that's the first module. The second module focuses on the governance. So we assume that you're an advisor to your treasurer, and we want to talk to you about the operating model, should be centralized or decentralized. We would like to invite you to the engine room. Treasury is often described as the engine room of the bank, which I think is a good analogy. And we like to invite you to the asset-liability committee as the center of this engine room, and talk about how best to set it up, what should be the terms of reference, what should be the policy framework around it. And again, as you can see at the bottom, we look at it not only from a purely regulatory perspective, but also from an accounting perspective, income perspective, economic perspective. So that's the second module. And then to finish on a light note, why did Treasury analysts break up with their spreadsheet? And the answer is too many issues with commitments and reconciliations. So that's the second module. And the third module brings it together now. Now we really put you in the driving seat. So we want you to steer the balance sheet, and then we want you to access the market, be it for tier 1 capital, for tier 2 capital, for securitizations. So now we bring the balance sheet and the governance together and you steer it. And as you can also see at the bottom, when it comes to comprehensiveness, we look at it across the entire spectrum, from peace times, if you like, from business as usual, to recovery planning, to resolution planning. So we look across what I call the stress continuum in its entirety. And we will also talk about investor relations. So that's a foundation module. And if you want to have another joke, is one treasurer said to his CFO, "We need to stress our balance sheet." To which the CFO replied, "We already are, every day, emotionally." So that's the foundation layer. And then the next step are the deep dives. And we have the first deep dive in liquidity risk. You may have heard the analogy that the treasurer is a shepherd of financial resources. The treasurer is a shepherd of financial resources. And there's one resource, liquidity. This should illustrate the liquidity buffer. And another resource, capital. This should illustrate the capital buffer. So what we do here we start with a liquidity buffer. We do a comprehensive deep dive into liquidity risk aspects, again, covering the entire spectrum from business as usual to recovery and resolution. And as you see from the topics here, it's almost a certificate in a certificate, covering the entire risk management cycle. Why is it important? You may have heard the saying, liquidity does not matter. Until it matters, then it's the only thing that matters. Liquidity does not matter. Until it matters, then it's the only thing that matters. I've worked at Credit Suisse for 10 years, and I've experienced from the inside the liquidity crisis in 2020 during COVID, the idiosyncratic or combined crisis in Q4 of 2022, and then the fast bank run in March 2023, and I can relate to this. And it's this type of experience that we will share throughout the lecture and the type of insights that we've got as a faculty. So that's the liquidity, if you like, the liquidity buffer, the ability to absorb outflows. The other financial resource is the capital buffer, and that's what we touch on in the next module. So what we do here is that we do a deep dive into your capital buffer. And the one picture that I want you to take away from this is maybe one that stuck with me is I once spoke to the former treasurer of HSBC and UBS, and he told me he felt like, as a treasurer, he felt like he was constantly quartered. And then he was referring to this medieval torturing and execution method where you get a horse tied to each of your arms and to each of your legs, and then they run off in different directions. And that's, he said, what he felt, because he was asked by the business, he was asked by executives, by risk managers, by regulators, and all of them were requesting him to manage his capital buffer to a certain target. And what we will look here at is things like the capital structure and planning. For example, I worked with one treasurer in the US who said to me, Michael, I've got enough capital. I just don't have the right structure of it. We will talk about the cost of capital and the capital allocation. For example, how do you allocate, where do you allocate your business to? How do you use this buffer? For which business lines? And we will again cover the entire spectrum and also talk about things like ICAP and then reverse stress testing, which is now often part of ICAP. So really business as usual, optimization down to stress testing and then preparing for recovery and resolution. Okay. And maybe as another joke here, why did the bank hire a magician? And the answer is to make their tier 1 capital disappear less dramatically. And if you look for a joke for liquidity for module 4, here we go. Why do you think treasury teams don't play poker? And the answer is because they can't handle unexpected draws. They cannot handle unexpected draws. Okay, so I hope this gives you an idea of the syllabus and why I think it's comprehensive. What I would say is the syllabus covers all aspects of ALM. We develop it further for every single cohort, and we are sure that it will arm you to speak with confidence at the ICO and also to help you to bring new ideas to the table in your firm. What you see on this slide also that almost all of our faculty members have published books. This is just a few. And we will also provide you with recommendations for further reading. In my lectures, that's always the last part, that we provide recommendations for further reading that you can then download from sources. And some of the recommendations we have gathered over decades, so it will save you a lot of search time. Okay. Now, before I close, I think it's one thing, me saying that it is comprehensive. I thought it's much better if I look up what alumni say. And I would encourage you to look on YouTube or to look on the BTRM homepage what students have to say. But here are just a few statements. So Stan Biele from PwC UK emphasized the program's international perspective on banking challenges and best practices, which has expanded her knowledge across Treasury functions and governance frameworks. Then France, from First National Bank of Namibia, he highlighted the BTRM program clarity on risk management frameworks, balance sheet management, and the importance of a strong risk culture in banking, which has been instrumental in his strategic role. Syed from Perina Bank noted that the program's structured learning allowed him to focus on practical implementation items in discussions, and it enhanced his efficiency in tackling real treasury challenges. Romulus from Raiffeisen Bank Romania described the program as one that has broadened his perspective and enhanced his strategic decision-making, providing real value to him and to his institution. Daniel Brito from Rabobank said he found the BTRM program provided a comprehensive understanding of treasury and risk management. It filled in technical knowledge gaps, and as Jeff said, he has since enrolled his entire team in the program. Florence from IPEC, she was awarded the Wiley Prize, so she was an outstanding student in her cohort. She appreciated the program's international perspective and its connections with other organizations, allowing a comparison of best practices across different financial markets. And I use the word of the students. These are students from cohorts 17, 18, and 19. Shi Shen from East West Bank described the program as a fantastic choice, providing a clear, structured understanding of how banks operate and best practice in risk management. Satya from Standard Chartered Bank found the course structure enjoyable and enriching, with lectures rich in content, connecting real-life examples and experiences. And then Godliving from NBC Tanzania said that he could apply most of the materials to his day-to-day work and appreciated the practical quality of the training. And finally, Maria from Emirates Islamic Bank, she found that the course materials were really practical and then supported her so that she could relate the learnings to her daily role. These are all items that you can also find, so that people have spoken up in public, and then you can find them on the internet. But I hope it gives you an impression how the syllabus that I've explained is perceived. Jefferson, I would hand over to you.
Thank you. Michael, one quick question. At what time are live lectures usually held?
So they are usually held at around in the afternoon on UK times, in the late afternoon. So we start usually at 5:30, and then we've got one lecture or sometimes two lectures. So it's around 5:30 UK time.
It can vary. So it depends also on the lecturers. It can start at 6 and sometimes even at 6:30 UK time.
Yeah. So the lectures, the length varies, but usually I would say between 1 hour and 90 minutes. As I said, if there are questions, we make the effort to answer them in the lecture, and then therefore we rather overrun the lecture than leaving something unanswered.
If I may add, there are occasionally double headers, so we might have 2 lectures in one night. So it is entirely possible that it will run on for maybe like 3 hours. If you can imagine 2 90-minute lectures, there's a couple of lecturers who will just do 3 hours, normally on the driest topic possible, because they just like that kind of thing. And occasionally things will happen where schedules just conflicts a lot, and we'll end up doing something wild like a lunchtime lecture or something like that. But that's very rare.
That's very rare. I think the important thing to note is that if you cannot join a live lecture, they are all recorded. They will be uploaded usually the same night. And I know a lot of students, they study or review the lectures again over the weekend. So you've got absolute flexibility, and it was one of the first courses of this kind that really gave you the autonomy to learn where and when you want to learn.
Super, thanks very much, especially for the syllabus breakdown. I hope you all found that really clear. If not, and if you've got any questions, then feel free to ask. Send me an email, and in fact, I'll also post my telephone number, and you can reach me on WhatsApp, which is obviously free. And anyone who turned up late, if you want to ask questions via email, this is my email address. Okay, BTRM alumni support. So if any of you do want to get in touch with alumni from, whether it's from, hold on, is it required to be present at any number of lectures? No, you can, if you're talking about live, no, you can watch. Well, I tell you what tends to happen is at the beginning, as many people as possible watch the program live. And by the end of the 6 months, most are watching the recordings of the lectures so that they can study it in their own time, at their own pace. And then they use the BTRM forum to ask any questions if there's any difficulties they have understanding the lectures. So yeah, if you want to speak to alumni from any particular country or from your organization, or alumni working in a role that you're working in or working in a role that you want to work in, then send me an email, okay? And I'll put you in touch. And I don't just pick and choose alumni. So for example, if you're from Norway and you would like to speak to BTRM alumni from Norway, I will send you the lot, because that's how confident we are that that everybody who goes through the program tends to have a pretty good time on it and a pretty useful time on it. So yeah, feel free to send me an email whenever you want. Okay, right, that's that. I think one thing that I should mention actually is that there is currently an early bird discount, which is available. It's a 20% discount, which is available until the 23rd of May. Now, the standard fee is £8,750. However, no VAT is added if you're funding yourself. No VAT is added if you're outside the UK and Europe. If you hold a professional qualification, such as the CFA, the FRM, there's a lot of them, there's a big list of them actually, then you are entitled to a discount. If you want to email me, I'll let you know what that discount is. It is a very generous discount. The other thing is that you can submit the fee in installments, even with the discounts, okay? So you can submit, to give you an idea, the 20% discount brings it down to £7,000. Okay, and the breakdown of fees is this. So you can actually submit £1,000, followed by £3,000 submitted week commencing the 8th of December, which is, 3 months into the course, October, November, 2 months into the course, followed by £3,000 week commencing the 9th of March. Okay, this is the 20% early bird discount. There are regional discounts as well, by the way. So we've got regional discounts that are, 25%. There are some regional discounts that are 50%. And obviously, look, this is in the name of fairness for those who earn less money in certain regions and are not able to afford the full fee. Then we extend larger discounts, and I think that's fair. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So these installments are for anybody who enrolls onto the program. You know, whatever professional qualifications you may or may not have, wherever you live around the world, these are the dates that the installments take place. And obviously, if it's a higher discount for particular regions, then obviously that £7,000 comes down substantially, and it's 50%. The second option is 50% submitted and then 50% submitted week commencing the 19th of January, which is over 3 months into the program. And the third option, the same. Okay, does anybody have any questions? If any questions do pop up, by the way, in the coming days, then feel free to send me an email or give me a call. Okay, and I'll do everything I can to help you out.
Jeff, I see we've got a question.
People can now unmute themselves if they want to.
Oh yeah, okay. Now I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to know. Well, of course, the program is quite comprehensive, as you've been emphasizing, and I totally agree with you. And I'm kind of new in the Treasury department, or rather the world, and I really want to learn more about it so that I'll be in a position to kind of act from a place of not doubting myself or something like that. And I just wanted to know if you do offer discounts for group, as like say if I talk to my department and I'll be like, okay, no, there's this BTRM program, and I think we should like kind of register for it. So I just want to know if like we come in large numbers, will you be able to provide the discount for us?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So if there are bulk numbers coming through the program, there are every cohort actually. Then we do provide discounts, and they're very generous as well. So yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. No, I think I'll reach out to just understand the discount that we'll get.
So Motabang, where are you from?
I'm from Africa.
Okay.
So
if you send me an email, Africa, there is a specific discount for Africa.
Yeah, which is 50%. Yeah, emphasize.
Yes, it is.
You said that. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what it is. Okay. And there, so look, that's already very, very high. So that would be the discount across the board. Okay, so if you were to put 5 people through the program, there would not be an additional discount over and above that. That would remain the discount. Yeah.
No, that's clear. That's clear. I totally understand. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Any other questions? We haven't quite reached the hour yet, so I'm hoping we can use up these last few minutes productively. But if not, that's fine. And as I say, just get in touch with me if any questions do pop up. Did I hear somebody?
No, I was going to say, I just checked. We did have one from Lesotho. We had First National Bank back in cohort 13 as a self-study. So there may be someone to talk to there.
Oh yeah, okay, no, I'll definitely look up for his name or her name.
If you want, I can provide you his details, Motabang. So if you send me an email, I'll provide you with his details, and that way you can talk to them about the effect of the program.
No problem.
Okay. Well, look, I think we'll
just to interject there. Sorry, just had a question. Sorry to interject there.
No, it's okay.
Well, just regarding the course content, to what extent does it include or incorporate your fintech in your balance sheet management. So especially with your Bitcoins and all of that, an alternative to your traditional central bank system. Is that covered through the course or not really?
So it is covered in parts of through different lectures. There's no dedicated lecture on it, but there are people who have background in it, and then also if there's interest, we can set up these ad hoc webinars and have a dedicated session on it. I think, and we've got lectures with a fintech background, and I think that's the strength of this faculty, that if you got questions, we collectively will be able to answer them in depth.
Perfect, thank you.
I think this is a question, on the difference between the CFA and the BTRM. But the CFA has been going on since, is it the 60s? It's been going on for decades. The CFA is a globally renowned, the most renowned finance qualification in the world. I don't think the BTRM is anywhere near as renowned as the CFA yet. But in terms of within this space, so Treasury, ALM, bank balance sheet management, it is very highly regarded and it's very well known around the world. And the CQF, it's completely different. So the CQF started in January 2003. It's a lot of it is, I worked for the CQF. In fact, I presented with Paul Wilmot, went traveling with Paul Wilmot for a number of years. So I know it very well. And it's the certificate in quantitative finance. So it's completely different from the BTRM. I don't think it's as practical, anywhere near as practical as the BTRM, but that doesn't mean to say that it's not an excellent course. And the CQF, having started in January 2003, within that space is more reputable than the BTRM. But you talk to Treasury professionals, asset liability management, anyone working in ALM, they'll know about the BTRM. And they'll know more about the BTRM than they will know about the CQF. But the CFA, granted, but the CFA is you're talking a giant. We're nowhere near that size. Is there a self-study pack? And it follows the same timelines like the live lectures. There is a self-study pack. So it's books. The cost is £3,950. What I would say is the journey through the BTRM program is it should be fun and quite thrilling. I mean, in terms of the knowledge you pick up, in terms of how the course is delivered, and you miss out on that. And I have no qualms in emphasizing the difference between the full course and the self-study pack. The self-study pack is just books. And in the brochure, you get the differences between the self-study pack and the full course. The full course, you also have access to all the other students studying around the world. The BTRM forum, where not only do you have access to the faculty, but you also have access to all of the other delegates on the program. And if you see a news story, what's been happening, I don't know, in the States or in Germany or in France, the impact of what's going on in the Middle East and the impact of that in the banking sector, you can discuss that with your colleagues from around the world. It's something that you can't do with the self-study pack. Having said that, what I would say is the only reason I would choose the self-study pack is if you can't afford the full course, in which case do the self-study pack. So purely financial reason. it can't really be anything else because the benefits of the full course are so much greater than the self-study pack. But do you have any more questions? Well, look, I think we'll call it a day. And listen, I really hope this has, given you the information that you need. If there's any gaps in your knowledge that you need in order to make a decision, then please get in touch with me, okay? And I'll help to answer any questions you may have. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day and hope to see you at the next program.